So do I. Good morning. I'm gonna start us out with a little bit of scripture, and this is Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, and we're looking at verses 6 through 11. Jesus and his disciples are in Jerusalem, and they're looking at the beautiful buildings of the temple and remarking on the beautiful stones in the walls. And Jesus starts a conversation, and he says, these things, what you see here, the time will come when not one stone will be left on another. Every one of them will be thrown down. Teacher, they asked, when will this happen? And what will be the signs that these things are about to take place? He replied, watch out that you are not deceived, for many will come in my name, claiming I am he and the time is near. Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and revolutions, don't be frightened, for these things must happen first, but the end will not come right away. Then he said, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, famine and pestilences in various places, fearful events, and great signs from heaven. He goes on to talk about persecutions of his followers to come, and a lot of other bad stuff. And the same conversation is in Matthew and in Mark. And the question I'm sure people have always asked is, when will the end time come, and when will the Son of Man return? And at the end of this conversation in Matthew and Mark, we get the answer. Jesus tells us, no one knows the hour of the day, not even the angels in heaven. There's a lot of questions I know that we all ask, and very often there is not a good answer, or not an answer at all. Now, I'm gonna take a left turn here, and I ask you to bear with me. It'll seem that I'm perhaps going a little far afield, and I am, I admit. But we will come back to these scriptures and look at them from some different angles. Jesus mentions all these signs of the end time. One of the things he mentions is great earthquakes. Not little bitty earthquakes, but great earthquakes. I'm going to talk about earthquakes. In the early morning hours of December 16th of the year 1811, there was a massive earthquake in the Mississippi River Valley. There was no one around to measure it on the Richter scale 200 years ago. But experts tell us that it was probably about 7.5 on the Richter, maybe as high as 8. Later that morning, there was an aftershock that they say probably measured above 7. A month later, on January 23rd, there was a second quake of equal magnitude. On February 7th, a third of equal magnitude. From December to April, they estimate there were some 2,000 aftershocks. Now, as earthquakes go, this was a perfect storm, and I'll explain why that is. There's basically two kinds of earthquakes. There's interplate quakes, I-N-T-E-R, and intraplate quakes, I-N-T-R-A. The first is when two chunks of the Earth's crust rub up against each other and cause friction. The second is when there's a fault or a weakness in the middle of a tectonic plate, which is what we have in the middle of our country in the Mississippi Valley. There's a fault line that runs northeast to southwest from Illinois to Arkansas, right underneath the Mississippi River. It's called the New Madrid or New Madrid Fault, after a little settlement that was on the Missouri shore at the time. Now, one of the things that happened with the first quake, possibly all of them, is since the fault is right underneath the river, it caused the flow of the river to stop and then reverse and flow upstream, creating a tsunami effect. There's something else that takes place with these kind of earthquakes in this sort of terrain. The soil is very loose on the banks of the river, very sandy. The earthquake sends heat from the center of the earth and causes the water table to rise. And of course, there's violent shaking and vibration. It's like a wearing blender. Loose soil, vibration, heat, and water. And in places, the ground turns to quicksand, and things simply disappear. Trees, log cabins, Indian villages, which brings me to my next little story. Everything I've told you so far is factual. Now we're going to switch to fiction. And again, I ask you to bear with me. We are coming back to scripture, trust me. This is an Indian legend, I'm going to tell you. The Chickasaw tribe lived in western Tennessee, near the Mississippi River. In the year 1811, there was a young man who lived in a Chickasaw village. His Indian name was Calipin, but he had another name, a nickname given him by white settlers. They called him Reelfoot. Calipin was born with a club foot, and with every step he took, he raised that foot high, and he had a peculiar rolling gait that looked kind of funny. So they called him Reelfoot. So anyway, his father was the chief in their village. And in the spring of 1811, his father came to him and said, "Son, you are of an age to marry. You should find a woman and make her your wife." He said, no, he wasn't interested in marriage. He said, "Father, none of the women in our village have kindled the spark of love in me." His father thought about this. He thought, his son is sort of a pain in the neck. And he said, "Perhaps to the south, in the villages of the Choctaw, who are our friends and neighbors and allies, you might find a woman. There are many beautiful women there." And Reelfoot thought this was a good idea. So he did that. He got some of his hunting buddies together, and they went down the river to a Choctaw village where they were welcomed. And all the young men of the Choctaw village and the Chickasaw young men sat around roasting venison and swapping hunting stories and fishing stories like young men do. And then something happened. A very beautiful young woman came walking through the village. And when Reelfoot saw her, he was immediately head over heels in love. He said to one of the Choctaw men, "Who is she? Who is that girl?" He said, "She is known as Laughing Eyes. She's the son of our chief." He said, "Oh." All that day he watched her, fascinated. That night, he dreamed of Laughing Eyes. The next day, he waited for her to appear, which she did. The more he saw of her, the more he loved her. At the end of the day, impulsively, he went to her father and did what no young man should do. He said, "I want to marry your daughter. I'm asking for her hand in marriage." The chief said, "Absolutely not," and became angry. Reelfoot became angry. He left with his friends. He went back to his village. All that year, through the summer, he brooded. He could think of nothing else but Laughing Eyes. In September, a great comet appeared in the sky. It was brilliant and large. Some men thought of it as an omen for good. Others thought it was a sign of something evil to come. Reelfoot thought it was a sign he should act and do something about his love. So he devised a plan and he got his friends together. And when his father heard of it, he said to him, "Son, do not do this. It is evil. You will anger our Choctaw friends. You will anger God." Reelfoot would not listen because he was in love. So he and his friends again returned and hid in the woods, waiting for the right time. For several days they waited, and finally, one night the sky was overcast. The great comet could not be seen. The moon and the stars could not be seen. It was pitch black. They stole into the Choctaw village, kidnapped Laughing Eyes, to return to their own village. Even though it was the middle of the night, Reelfoot insisted everyone rise and prepare a wedding feast. He was going to marry Laughing Eyes, who said to him, "Do not do this. My father will be angry. God will be angry." Reelfoot's father came to him and said, "Son, don't do it. God will be angry with you." And they were right. At that point, God had enough. And he brought down his foot upon Reelfoot and Laughing Eyes and the entire Chickasaw village and ground them into the earth, which caused the earth to rumble and shake and split open in many places. After a while, God lifted his foot, and water from the Mississippi River flowed in to fill the void. For many days, while his anger cooled, God continued to tap his foot on the ground, causing it to rumble and shake. And that's how the Indians explained the earthquakes. Now, in western Tennessee, a few miles from the river, there's a lake. It's nearly 30 miles long and about 5 miles wide. It's called Reelfoot Lake, and it's shaped like a big footprint. Now, all this, of course, is fantasy, but a few things impress me about this story. It's kind of a goofy legend, but I don't know if the Chickasaw were Christian Indians. I don't know if they'd been introduced to the gospel. They may have. Eastern Indians, most of them at that point, were Christians. But they had a belief system, and they had a belief in God. And there's 3 things that this story tells us that they believed. One is that God was omnipotent and would do with his creation whatever he wanted. Secondly, they believed if they sinned, God would be displeased. And then they believed what we know is that bad things happen to good people. Reelfoot was the evildoer, but the other people around him who were innocent suffered the same consequences. So, whatever they believed, they had a lot of the same questions and a lot of the same thoughts that we do. Now, it's hard to put us in the place of our ancestors. They lived differently than we did 200 years ago. They didn't have a lot of what we have, but what they did have, we have, are the scriptures. And when I read about the earthquakes, and what I know about history, and when I read the Indian legend, it occurred to me that if we could transport ourselves back 200 years. And we were studying the scriptures. And we looked at this passage in Luke, or in Matthew, or in Mark, and thought about what we had experienced in our lifetime. We would have experienced the Revolutionary War and possibly participated in it. We would have known about the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror, the rise of Napoleon, the wars in Europe, which were more or less continual from 1793 to 1815. Our own wars here at that period with the Indians, the Barbary pirates. And then we're sitting there and we look at these earthquakes. And the comet that appeared was real. That did appear in September of 1811. In Europe, Napoleon looked at it as a sign that it was time for him to invade Russia, which he did the following year. All of these things were things. I think they could check off all the boxes. Everything Christ mentioned, and in some versions and elsewhere in Matthew and so on, sometimes it's wars and revolutions, or wars and insurrections, or wars and rumors of wars. But along with wars go famine and pestilence. And they had great signs in the heavens. There was this comet. There were fearful events. And there were great earthquakes. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Let me ask you a question. Is this information about the New Madrid earthquakes, which are, by the way, all the New Madrid Fall under the Mississippi River, is also referred to as the Reelfoot Rift. Reelfoot left its mark on history. Is the information about those earthquakes 200 years ago, is this all new to you?
Yes.
Melinda's grandmother was born and raised in a little town a couple of miles from Reelfoot Lake. And we went out there and visited once for a couple of days. And I did a little experiment. Everywhere we went, I asked the people that lived there, you know about the New Madrid earthquakes?
What do you know about?
They all knew.
Earthquake?
They knew pretty much everything I just told you. Because they're sitting there living on a time bomb. Anywhere where there's been an earthquake, and I'm not trying to scare you, but anywhere where there's been an earthquake once, it can be one again. So then when I came home, here in the East, I went around, whenever I had a conversation with everybody, I said, hey, you know anything about the New Madrid earthquakes? Nobody had a clue, because we're not sitting on that time bomb. We have our own time bombs. But, anyway, does anybody have any questions?
What's the lesson from that, Peter?
The lesson is that no one knows the hour or the day. So we shouldn't try to infer from any bad stuff that happened then or now that we know, we think we know the hour and the day when Christ returns. There are people I know who've tried to figure it out. They look through the book of Revelations and elsewhere, and they come up with a day and a time, and it never pans out. But additionally, Christ tells us to be vigilant and to always be prepared and wary and aware.
Didn't Jesus say that he didn't even know?
He said, he did not know, nor did the angels in heaven. Only the Father knows. Anybody else?
Peter, this is not a question, just a statement. My husband and I lived in Memphis, Tennessee
Uh-huh.
from 1975 to when we moved to Greenville in the fall of '80. And during that, and I didn't know about Bigfoot Lake, but I'm just gonna tell you that while we were there, we did, there was I think it was 3.5
Mhm.
on the Richter scale. Those years, of course, they had that. And, there was shaking, we lived in an apartment, there was shaking, and down by the river, which you say the fault line went through the river, I didn't realize that.
Mhm.
Some tall buildings, they had some issues in those tall buildings from the vibrations. So the reality of the earthquake in Memphis, I've experienced.
Yeah, and, you know, anywhere that's earthquake prone, you know, California, Japan, what have you, there's always little ones, and everybody's waiting for the big one. So geologists speculate that prior to 1811, before that, there was a big one, but it was way back 200 years before that, in the early 1600s. So who knows, you know? Today there are big urban centers, Memphis, St. Louis, Little Rock, Louisville, they're all right there around the epicenter. But, you know, it's the whole situation out there is always fascinated me. So, and what I told Mickey earlier, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm taking a historical event that I'm fascinated with, and I'm twisting it around this way and that way to turn it into a Bible study, and I hope that's okay. Anything else?
I have a statement.
Yeah.
I think what I gather from this is that since we don't know, we need to be ready. I mean, the bottom line, I know that's kind of something that goes without saying, but, you know, I was always brought up with, you don't know the hour. We could be sitting here now, who part of this leave and part of this stay.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel like we hear about birthing pains, and, you know, the Bible talks about being in those birthing pains,
I'm sorry, being in the what?
And again, I love the story because we tend to think that only the bad stuff's happening now. Bad stuff's been happening for thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, since Adam and Eve.
She said birthing
But
pains.
we have more technology to be aware of, and I think that's the difference. I've often said, people are exactly the same. We are the same people that God created in the Garden of Eden.
Mhm.
We have the same feelings, we have the same desires. The
Mhm.
thing that's changed is the technology, and we're aware of more stuff out there. But my question is, do you feel like we are in maybe the late stages of birthing pains, maybe in that last trimester? And just even the more importance to use this technology to really spread, that you really need to be ready.
You know, I don't know, I suppose any period in time where people are going through tribulation, you know, wars, famine, you know, plagues, COVID, whatever, they might be tempted to say, we are near the end times. I kind of think, I want to myself feel that I don't know, and I shouldn't speculate. I should just kind of be ready.
Amen.
You know, I'm perfectly willing, there's an awful lot I don't know. And you know, and some of these things come up so often in the men's Bible study. And people throw questions out, and sometimes some of us have good answers and sometimes not. And I always say, you know, I've come to the conclusion at some point in my life, there are things that I will not know the answer to until I come face to face with Jesus, and then all the answers will be there. I'll give you, and maybe Sam or Guy or somebody will know what song this is from. I've read something recently about a country song. And there's a line I love from the song. I don't know what song it is. But the line is, he loved me before I knew him. And now all my love is due him.
He plunged me to victory.
What's that?
He plunged me to victory.
Is that the name of the song?
But he
Victory in Jesus.
Victory in Jesus and Him.
Okay. See, I love music, but I know I don't know much. I have to defer to people like Sam and Guy. So,
Peter, I think it's Dennis Ross back here, but
yeah,
the Bible tells us how it's gonna end, that nations will fight nations, the Antichrist will be here, the end times are gonna be terrible. And we know how it's gonna end, and so really the main purpose in my thought is that the reason why God's not doing it now and why there's a delay or when's it gonna be, is so that we can save more souls, that we can share the word and share the gospel and
Good
share
point.
the good news.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason is to love everybody and share the news, because we know how it's gonna end.
yeah.
So Peter,
Yeah,
I have a comment, not
Yeah.
a question. What a wonderful lesson, but beyond that, I'm amazed by how you put this together and how you delivered this. And, you know, everyone in this room has challenges. We know about your challenge with eyesight, and frankly, I see 0% victim in you. What I see is someone committed to Christ and committed to testimony, and that's my takeaway. I love your lesson, but I'm stunned to see you in front of us like this, and I thank God.
that's very kind of you to say that. I will tell you that in the last half of my career, I was called upon to, in my job, to do a fair amount of public speaking, and actually sometimes it involved memorization and whatnot. And so it's not like, you know, we're speaking in front of a bunch of people for the first time, but it's, you know, like you said, everybody has challenges, but very often you don't know what you can overcome until you just step out and do it.
Tom, this is Rusty Duke.
Yeah,
One night you shared with me about how you became blind
yeah.
and your history. Would you share that with us this morning?
How much time we got left, Sam?
You've got enough time to do that.
You might want to put
Push your mic back on.
Yeah, some people can't hear. Sam's coming to help you.
Sam, this is more complicated technology than when I was coming up. All right.
It can't be too complicated because I'm doing it.
All right, well, okay. I'll try and make this as simple and short as possible. I had cancer of the retina when I was a baby, and I lost an eye before I was 2 years old. And when I was 15, I woke up one morning and I didn't have the sight of the other eye anymore. The good news, that's the bad news. The good news is I was blessed with having sight for 15 years. And it makes all the difference in the world. I've known many people who've never seen it all. And you can't have a concept of what your environment around you is like, what things look like. Having had sight, it's easier to get around, it's easier to conceive of different things. You know, I was also very fortunate in being able to have a good job and a wonderful wife and wonderful kids and a good life. And I think in many ways I got more than a lot of people do, because some people don't, you know, have all that. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell, Rusty, okay? Anything else you want to know?
How did that affect your life when you were 15 and you had been able to see, although you only had one eye, you'd been able to see and interact with your friends and whatnot, and you woke up blind?
Yeah.
You went to bed seeing, you
Right.
woke up. How did that affect you?
Well, you go through different phases, you know, denial, anger, you know, all the usual stuff.
Yeah.
And then, as I think I've shared some of you, like from the ages of 15 until 25, I spent 10 years being kind of an annoying dirtbag, trying to prove to the world that I could do anything anyone else could. And I probably could have killed myself several times. And then when I was 25, I met Melinda and I became a Christian, and then everything was uphill from there. So, but yeah, it wasn't fun for a few years, but you know, it's okay, you know. I'm fine. Don't be concerned.
No, I'm not. I think you get along very well.
Well, you know, I will tell you that.
You could tell me the tree story,
Pardon me?
the tree story,
The tree story.
you know, with your guide when you were 15.
Is that a story we should tell in Sunday school? Okay, all right.
It's funny.
Now I want to know. Tell it now.
A month or two after I lost my sight, I was given a person who was going to teach me mobility, teach me how to use a cane and so on. And he was very good at it. And with his help, I learned quickly. And one of the things he would do would be to give me an exercise, either be in an urban or a suburban area. And he would say, okay, you're on your own. You walk up to the next block, across the street. Somewhere on that block is a barber shop. Find it. And there's all kinds of little tricks you can use. I mean, you could even stop and ask somebody, but he wanted to see how my mobility was, you know, on the sidewalks and the streets. And one of the things you learn quickly when you lose your sight is there's something they refer to as facial vision. And what that is even though you can't see it, when you pass an object, or if you're in a hallway and you pass an open door, you know that something changes because of sound and air currents and so on. And I was having a good time experimenting with this. So he's walking behind me and I'm walking up the street and I'm walking along and I realized there's a tree or a telephone pole to my left, and I stop, and I take the cane and I reach out and touch it, and then I just start raising it, and all of a sudden, the man is at my elbow, pulling me along. He goes, come on, we're going up to the next corner, and we're gonna start over. I said, what's the matter? He just come on. So we got to the next corner, and he stopped me. He said, you know what you just did? I said, what? He goes, there was a young lady came walking up the sidewalk towards you. When she saw you, she froze. She stepped off the sidewalk and stared. Her eyes were as big as plates looking at you, scared to death. And you took that cane, and you took it, and you raised her skirts and exposed her underwear. So. That's a true story. I always wondered who she was.
So was that one of the earthquakes?
Pardon me?
Was that one of the earthquakes?
Yeah.
Did you find the barber shop?
I don't remember.
That's so funny.
Anyway. What time is it, Sam?
It's time.
Thank you, Peter.